everything began in the mid to late 90s when Bullfrog Productions, who were mostly known for Populous, Syndicate, Theme Park, and Magic Carpet, was purchased by Electronic Arts in 1995, and founder Peter Molyneux became vice president of EA in the process. However, the environment of Bullfrog became more diluted over the next couple of years, and his role retracted from his real love of making games. So after leaving Bullfrog in 1997 by emailing CEO Larry Probst his resignation while drunk, according to Molyneux himself, a lot of other developers followed suit, including Ian Lovett and Dean and Simon Carter, who wanted to make their own game based on ideas they came up with. It took them a long time just to come up with a name for their new studio which set the tone early, before Dean finally uttered the words, "Oh bugger, I don't suppose Big Blue Box sounds too stupid, does it?" And instead of starting small to get enough experience as developers and founders, they immediately wanted to go out of their comfort zone and revolutionize the RPG genre. They wanted to allow players to have unique experiences and their own stories to tell, and they first called it Thingy. Meanwhile, they kept in touch with Peter Molyneux, who would go on to form Lionhead Studios and develop RTS Black and White for the PC in 2001. He would even let the three guys stay at his house to get themselves started. But during one drunken conversation with all four guys along with Steve Jackson, the latter came up with a satellite studio scheme, where Lionhead would provide Big Blue Box the initial development tools and assist in finding a publisher, so the trio could focus on making the game. But even that didn't guarantee getting one, because their ideas for Thingy still didn't exist in a video game at the time, and it was such a giant and expensive project, particularly for a new developer, many publishers considered it too risky. But in 2000, they finally caught a break when Microsoft's Ed Fries was very impressed with what Big Blue Box came up with. He also liked Molyneux's work in the 90s and wanted an exclusive RPG on their upcoming Xbox. Now that they got the publisher and the money needed to do anything they wanted, Lovett and the Carter brothers moved out of Molyneux's house into a real office and compiled a team of 30 to turn their concepts, demos, and ideas into a video game. However, this was just the beginning of their struggles. According to one of those hired members, Ian Denniston, who joined Big Blue Box in 2001, called the environment in true Bullfrog and Lionhead tradition a relaxed one with the occasional prank. He saw this as a warning sign of being too positive, and by the time E3 2003 arrived, that sign was slowly coming true. The only things the developers had to show for it were again just tech demos and no real game, which really put the squeeze on them. That was when they realized it was a much bigger game than they anticipated. It also didn't help that Peter Molyneux was hyping the game to unrealistic levels, promising features that were too absurd and wouldn't make the final product. This was nothing new, as even back when he was with Bullfrog, he was saying things like, in Theme Park, if your customers get injured on a ride, then they'll turn up in Theme Hospital, and that wasn't the case. But unfortunately with Project Ego, he said the one thing you should never ever say during development, that it was going to be the best game ever.
Oh no, this isn't the right way at all!
Now I saw this quote on an old internet page from 2003, so I questioned its authenticity, but Molyneux has never denied it, and would even clarify that he would say things like that as a way to approach development, motivate the staff to meet their promises, get the attention of consumers, and produce something solid, which in hindsight it kind of worked. However, if you say a game is going to be the best before it comes out no matter how good it is, that's a sign of arrogance and you're still going to be made fun of. And in this case, it would not motivate the team, because life in the office by that point was a nightmare.
I just have to hope someone else will help me, or I won't last the day.
The pressures of meeting deadlines led the team to go through crunch time and hire an extra set of hands, merging Big Blue Box with Lionhead Studios in 2002, and bringing in some members of Microsoft just to make sure they were on the road to completing it, which only made life more difficult because now they had people arguing what kind of game it should be, what to keep, what to omit, and combined with the crunch time, even Molyneux admitted in 2009 that development by that period completely ruined people's lives. And with all the recent stories including Red Dead Redemption 2 and Anthem coming under fire for the same reasons, it clearly had a negative effect on the team, and is one of the biggest reasons why so many promises weren't fulfilled. The only time the developers felt like there was no pressure was when they finally released Fable for the Xbox on September 2004, and making the Lost Chapters expansion after a long deserved break when they knew their limitations and no longer had to crunch. That's the version we're looking at in this review, with all the extra outfits, quests, and locations. If you want this game, make sure it's this, because the standard edition is way too short for an RPG. Now, I never paid attention to the hype or news. In fact, I didn't know about it until a few years later because I was too young to play it, and I didn't have an Xbox. But when I did get it for the PC, it may surprise you guys, but I absolutely loved this game back in the day. And it's up there with GTA 4, San Andreas, Gran Turismo, and Crash Bandicoot in my top 5 of video games I've played the most. Like, I don't know how many times I've beaten it, so it's safe to assume that I know Fable Lost Chapters back to front. I could almost do a full review based on my past experiences alone if I tried, and this is another one of those games I wanted to review since I started this channel. If it took this long to reach the beginning of this review, have I got a lot to talk about. Deep in the forests of Albion lived a little boy who had dreams of becoming a hero. Now in this game, a hero does not mean a person with courage and a good moral compass, but a person with high levels of skill, strength, and will, no matter what the morality. Anyway, it all begins in the town of Oakvale with your family, getting a present for your older sister's birthday. But then the bandits turn the town upside down, kill his father and kidnap his mother and sister. However, the boy was able to stay hidden, and before he's about to get killed himself, he's saved by Maze and brings him to the Guild of Heroes to become the hero he's always dreamed of and avenge his family. He would do a few quests all over Albion, but after reaching the arena, Jack of Blades has reappeared after an eternity to find the Sword of Eons, and your family's bloodline is the key to that sword, meaning there's more to that raid than just a way to feed the bandits' bloodlust. It certainly has the makings of a grand fantasy epic. Like, if you summarize the plot even more than I did just then, a little boy's family in town is taken away from him, grows up to become a powerful hero. Meanwhile, a near immortal supernatural being returns after centuries to find a sword that requires the bloodline of the boy's family. That sounds cool.
After an eternity away from you all, Jack of Blades is back.
However, to quote art director John McCormack, they were trying to put all these bits together and they didn't know how to do it. That went on for a long time. Basically, the game has highly developed characters, they just didn't know what to do with them, how to tie everything together or not fully utilize their potential. And that's why a lot of the backstories key to the plot are from in-game books. This school donation side quest is the best you're gonna get. There's a lot to digest, but it's barely present, not even to the point of leaving it to our own imagination. The same way Mass Effect does with the First Contact War, or Red Dead Redemption does with the Dutch Van der Linde game before the prequel came out, for example. I looked further into the origin story of Jack of Blades, and apparently before the events of Fable, there was the Court, a godlike faction which included the Blades, Queen, Knight, and Jack, existing before humans and demanded the land of Albion bow to them. After they refused, the Court burned their land. The people still refused. They flooded it, still refused, before eventually relenting after they twisted their minds.
Never have we encountered a being like him.
But William Black, aka Scythe, probably, was able to overthrow them after stealing one of their swords, the Sword of Eons, and used it against them in battle. However, the sword can talk, and promised it could only assist in victory through its powers if William offered his soul. And because William is the descendant of the main protagonist and his family thousands of years later, after Jack of Blades returned wanting that sword back, it meant he needed that bloodline to get to it, which led to the Oakvale raid. I don't know if the developers left this part out deliberately for a sequel or prequel, or if the crunch time to get the game finished meant they didn't have a chance to do anything with it. God damn, the plot makes a lot more sense with that information. If they had additional quests or in-game flashbacks based on that, it definitely would have made it a more compelling game. Point is that I needed the internet and Tales of Albion for more clarification on the moments I considered plot holes, and when you take a step back and actually think about the scope of this game, you can see the shortcuts.
He would receive the guild seal and be free to forge his own destiny. He would become a hero.
Fortunately, when I played it all those years ago, I didn't think about it that much because it was amusing and dramatic enough to motivate me to beat it to the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment, I give you Pie Master!
It has a certain charm to it, like an exaggerated Britain.
Can anybody tell me another way to make friends?
Tell them you'll smash their teeth in if they won't be friends with you.
There's no doubt the Lionhead environment played a role, and that soundtrack by Russell Shaw is amazing from start to finish. Although I wish it'd play at least one different song each time I enter a village, because there aren't that many music cues, and there are cinematic cutscenes, which means my hero doesn't look anything like he does in comparison. But as usual, just minor nitpicks. Even if there isn't enough information to make sense on certain moments, the nostalgic memories cloud my judgment a bit. I still like it a lot. I know some people might have turned away initially because of all the empty promises made by Peter Molyneux, like how an acorn can grow into a tree over time. I honestly think it's a pointless feature that shouldn't have been in the game to begin with, but like I said before, I didn't pay attention at the time, so I liked it for what it was. But sticking with that theme, Molyneux claims that almost everything he promised the team tried to do in-game during development, with the acorn turning to a tree took up 15% of all the memory in the game, for example. If this is true, I have my doubts, then the team clearly wanted to push the limits of what the Xbox can handle. It doesn't really look like it does, but Albion is a decent sized map that has teleportation spots. Everywhere you go there are no empty spaces, and even though it's 15 years old as of this review, it's aged pretty well graphically, which is easier to do if the setting is lighthearted. But if it can look this good in 1080p and 60 frames per second on the PC version, then why get Fable Anniversary? Why spend more on different graphics? Just make sure you don't play this game on the Xbox with the 360. And of course, it's for technical reasons. These things occur mostly when in town, fortunately, and I've played it enough to know what I'm doing. But still, just play this on the original Xbox or PC.
Now there's a whole world for you to explore.
You start the game as a little boy, and by the time you reach the final boss, you're an old man, unless I have anything to do with it. And the whole gameplay structure is based on morality, where throughout your life, you can choose to be either good or bad, and each side strongly affect your appearance. Like you'll grow devil horns as you become more evil, or blonde hair with a halo on top if you're better, for example. And whenever you walk past anyone, your actions, appearance, and expressions make a difference. This was another thing that stood out from other RPGs. Sure, there aren't that many character models for a map this size. I mean, every single guard in Albion's either a twin or a clone. But what was unique for its time was the fact they do things like work, turn off lights, visit the tavern, and go to sleep with the doors locked. None of them give you any real advice apart from shops being different prices when buying and selling stuff, but at least they're doing things at different times of day, not just stand there until you approach them.
You stole that, I saw. Guards!
And if you commit something illegal, I strongly recommend it because it's so amusing, they will tell on the guards.
Stop! That's illegal!
The funniest thing I did in this game was sleep on someone else's bed, woke up, was told to leave, but instead stole something in front of them, and then accidentally beat the guy to death on purpose in retaliation for calling the guards, which resulted in Deathbringer getting kicked out of town. Another day in the office for him.
Put that weapon away! That's against the law!
It's fun to take the piss out of the town people in this game just to hear their reaction.
You have to go! Oh, don't! Stop it! I saw you steal that, Lord.
People telling you off, to fearing you, to straight up running away from you, even to the point where they hide in their locked houses while going on a crime spree, they all know who you are.
I shall do your bidding.
But at least it works both ways, which is one of the more impressive features of Fable. Being on the positive side of the moral spectrum means they'll shower their praises to you, and the more powerful you get, the more they cheer and fall in love with you to the point of marriage, which is another optional thing you can do outside of quests.
I can't believe we're married!
However, if you're the good guy and do something in one town to the point where they'll run away from you without hesitation, while the rest of the town worship you, you go back to that town where you weren't very nice, they won't forget you. So apart from how the moral points are spread, it's surprisingly consistent on the surface.
Pie Master.
Nice to see you.
And so are the expressions, which you can use at almost any time. They range from laughing, farting, belching, flirting, and again, how people perceive you will have a unique response to it.
Thanks, alright.
That was hilarious!
It isn't exactly useful with progressing through the game, but it's easy to be distracted by them. The only ones that stand still the whole time are the ones highlighted in green, because they're part of completing quests and other side activities. That must be why the Guildmaster stands at this spot almost the whole game, the whole of your life. If you don't have the tips turned off, he'll say quest card more times than Navi says hey and listen.
There's an important quest card in the guild for you.
But to be fair, they are part of progressing through the game. Most of the big quests are at the guild, and completing them will give you experience orbs, gold, and renown. And usually you get a choice of doing a good or evil thing which give you lots of deed points. Like whether you want to spare or kill someone, and some side quests allow you to pick between good and bad. Like the orchard farm involving expensive stones. You can either defend the farm against bandits, or team up with them to take the stones from the farm.
You've got the boxes, there's nothing else. Just leave us be. I'll make sure to tell everyone about you. We need heroes like you around.
Thing is, it's all over the place. Some of the quests are tailored for the sort of stuff a good hero would do no matter what the morality, like saving traders, protecting townspeople, getting clues to stop the main antagonist, and if you want to complete it 100%, you're required to be good and bad against your will. Why not include side quests that require a strong amount of morale points on one side? And I can't put my head around why a hero would work with the bandits at any moment if they were the ones who destroyed his childhood. Keep in mind that some of the side quests disappear if you don't do them earlier. And after you beat the game, you can only continue to clear all the little side quests if you go through the whole ending credits. Skipping it will take you straight to the main menu. I wonder if this is meant to be some sort of reward for realizing how many people worked on the game. And knowing how much of a nightmare it was to make, it's plausible.
Aren't you just in the mood to kick some chickens today?
The green markers on the map also signal other things to do around Albion, including a chicken kicking contest, yes really, a bordello, yes really, a fist fighting competition, and bar games like blackjack, spot the edition, and coin golf. This being an open map, if you feel like you've been robbed, you can take your frustrations out on him if you want to.
What in Scorn's name do you think you're doing?
These distractions are what you expect from an RPG or open world title. You have the main story, but there's more to do as well, and they're actually not bad, especially for a game that doesn't take long to beat, which makes it feel longer than it actually is. That could be an advantage in the sense that if you don't have much time for video games and like RPGs, this is perfect.
Come on, welcome!
That's some knuckle power you got there.
And of course, the green markers signify places to buy and sell things and customize your hero as you see fit. There are probably only a dozen outfits to wear because all of them have a light and dark version, as what you wear also affects your alignment. And people will react to your appearance based on scariness and attractiveness. Like if you look evil, it'll be the inside of a nose to them.
He's got a face like a slaughtered balverine.
Or if you look like whatever that is, they'll giggle.
Make me laugh, why don't you?
In this playthrough, I went from looking like a Santa Claus wannabe to a proper warrior. I think I like the former. I'm going to assume they're laughing with me on this one because of the tattoo on my back. Okay, on the PC version, you can add custom designs which only came back to me just as I was able to beat the game, but I wanted my hero to have something random and funny, in a good way. So what I did was put a portrait of Miguel Sanchez from The Simpsons on my back.
That tattoo makes you look so manly.
You bet it does, darling. Anyway, point is that it's there if you're interested. And there's another cool way of customizing your hero. Even the prices vary based on alignment. I would have thought that being evil meant that prices dropped because people would be too scared to increase it, but it's actually the opposite.
Please don't mess with the goods.
I think this was unnecessary, because being good allows you to exploit a glitch where you can sell things for more gold than you can buy if they're a wanted item. Just keep buying and selling all of the same item. After 5 minutes you'll have 1 million gold in your purse. And it certainly made this playthrough easier than it should have been. I don't feel bad about it though, because I've beaten it several times without doing that. The weapons section is also limited with 4 different levels of stats, but they can be augmented for extra power like fire, lightning, silver, etc. But if that isn't enough, you can find silver keys all over Albion to unlock these treasure chests to gain special items, as well as regular ones. And demon doors, which can be unlocked after doing what they say really, typically give you either a legendary outfit or weapon more powerful than the ones you buy in store. The experience you gather from completing quests and killing enemies drop experience orbs, which you can spend at the guild to improve your hero in strength, skill, and will.
Only by doing this regularly will you advance as a hero.
There are enough options where I see a lot of different ways people play this game. Mine is Inflame, Divine Fury, and Heal Life. Those are the only spells I would ever need to beat this game. However, it isn't long enough to max everything out, and nor are there any moments that require you to use a certain willpower unless you're trying to break the game. You only need 1 or 2 basic strategies that can be used the entire playthrough, which almost makes the willpowers pointless. Like, I wonder if anyone could beat this game without using any of them. This must be why I liked it so much back then. It's not just for its living and breathing towns, but the mechanics aren't too complicated for an RPG. And that follows into the controls, which are another part of why Fable is a fun game that's quick to get into, even if you're playing for the first time.
Yes, quite impressive for a novice. You will find real battles rather more fatal than this.
Okay, it's easy for me to say that because it's one of my top 5 most played video games, but then it wouldn't be if it didn't control this well, right? With those 3 experience categories, they affect how you attack, the type of weapons you can carry, and because it's an action RPG, it's all real time and tight. However, because you only need a couple of basic strategies, and you'll go through long stretches where you'll fight the same enemy type, there will be moments when it feels repetitive. In fact, the only enemy that seems to give you a hard time are the minions who block at least 80% of your attacks. This game will be a breeze. I always tell myself if I ever lose a life or resurrection file, even on the final boss every time I play, I consider it a disappointment. But again, at least the controls are perfectly fine.
You'll not see another day.
You have the option to boast to add a little bit of challenge to the quests, but not that much. And it's enough of a breeze that the benefits aren't worth it. The only hard boast is completing a quest without a scratch. And I also wish you had the ability to skip the tutorial if you already know how to play the game. In fact, I have a reserved save file just in case I don't want to do that part. I know growing from child to hero is key to the narrative, but there are enough plot holes for it to not really matter. When I look at this game with fresh eyes, it seems like whenever it tries something unique, it has some sort of issue, and not just because they were the first to do it. Like going back to the morality system, it's very misleading, because no matter what side you're on, good or evil, the main goal is to defeat Jack of Blades. Like trying to stop him while being evil yourself. How does that make sense? Although the Lost Chapters tries its best to add that question of who's the real villain towards the end if you continue your bad deed streak.
You have been given too much power, and it has corrupted you.
It's good that you get to choose and it affects how much you earn, the willpowers you can learn, and how townspeople perceive you. There are clear advantages and disadvantages to each side, but not in a way that it makes the game more challenging. And the age system, for example, as you progress through the game, you realize that the rest of Albion never evolves. This is what the Guildmaster looked like when you were a child, and this is what he looks like at the end of the game. It even gets to the point where you're older than the oldest sister or mother. They clearly didn't think ahead with this. years.
Catching souls? Never heard such nonsense.
Now, it would be fine if the characters around you also aged like Sims. Some buildings change, or if you didn't age too quickly. Instead, you're like Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid Guns of the Patriots, aging 10 years in just a couple of minutes. Going back to the beginning of the review, Ian Dennison joined Big Blue Box in 2001, he claimed that development of Fable went from a smaller group in an environment highly relaxed with no sense of ending, laughing at deadlines and thinking well outside the box, to panic mode, additional staff, and crunch time over the last couple of years. Maybe the developers wanted to fix these issues, but everyone got caught in trying to complete it after constant delays, which means a lot of the symptoms show in the game itself. I mean, Peter did a good job in getting the consumer's attention, but also for the wrong reasons. And as a consequence, he and the game became an easy target for criticism by fans and reviewers. The lesson is that you've got to know the limitations of the system you're programming the game for early and tell the truth. Let's just assume that Peter did that 100%, or at least kept quiet. What would we think of Fable then, with its living and breathing map, morality system, and the way it plays? It certainly would have been released earlier. But in the end, the developers did as much as they could with Fable. The final result is still a terrific game that's considered one of the best for the original Xbox, and I love it as much as I did when I played it for the first time over a decade ago. It's certainly not the best ever, because in my opinion there is no such thing, but it makes you wonder, what if it did everything Peter promised? There are plenty of things wrong with Fable, but at least they aren't game breaking or detract too much from the experience, like there's nothing virtually unplayable about it, just bizarre, almost funny, and it does more than enough of the right things to make up for it with such charm you can't help but forgive them for it. At the end of the day, just punch the Guildmaster, then all the problems suddenly vanish.